Good evening. We have just gone through the Holy Week, its deathless drama of Christian suffering and redemption. And as luck would have it, our guest tonight is Mrs. Corazon Aquino, former President of the Philippines. Last February 4, in an evocative address before the Solo Parents National Convention, Mrs. Aquino spoke about her suffering. Mrs. Aquino, mother of 5, widow of Ninoy Aquino, 6-year chief of state, knows what suffering is. She was in prolonged agony after the assassination of Ninoy Aquino. She took over the cares of state for 6 years. Today, she bears another set of wounds, her daughter Chris Aquino's love affair with Philip Salvador, a married man. But CORY Aquino has made her peace with God, has left everything to God. This is part of the story she will tell tonight in reply to our questions. The entire story will also cover the world of politics. Here again, some events that are transpiring prior to the May 8 elections give her cause to suffer even more. Well, Winnie, you are a mother, a wife, children, and I would imagine that you are more, shall we say, privy to that kind of suffering than I am because I'm a man.
I'm not sure that just because you're a woman you suffer more than a man. A man just doesn't have the guts to show this that he's suffering. But I think that with respect to the president, she really has had more than her share of suffering. It's amazing. A lot of my friends who are in the lower economic groups tend to think that if you're wealthy, there's no way you can suffer. And yet here is President Cory, who is by no means poor, and she has, as you had said, she's had an assassination of her husband, she's had coup attempts during her presidency, she's had all sorts of attacks on her person and on her character. For a presidency she never even wanted in the first place, and then now she's got the suffering of a mother for a child who has, well, you know, to put it mildly, has gone astray.
It's amazing when you look back, no? She has gone through a life of Gethsemane.
Yeah, but
it seems that her suffering never ends one after the other, and it's amazing how she copes with it.
Well, and that's why it's nice as part of the Easter story to find out, you know, a real life, a down-to-earth, now contemporary example of suffering and maybe forgiveness and ultimately redemption. So let's get President Cory on here.
Okay. We'll get President CORY Aquino aboard firing line in several seconds. Stay with us.
Thank you, Teddy.
I'm sure that before Winnie and myself, well, we won't put you on the firing line, but we'll ask a lot of questions.
Oh, we're certainly going to put her on the firing line. She's, if there's anybody who knows how to have grace under pressure, anyway, it's President Aquino.
We do feel that after the Holy Week, you would have a post-Easter message to give to the audience of firing line, so kindly.
Well, first of all, let me wish all of our listeners a happy Easter, and I hope that we all went through a Holy Week, reminding ourselves of what Holy Week is all about, and in fact, giving ourselves to the Lord and joining in His sufferings for the redemption of mankind.
Mrs. Aquino, the Holy Week gave you ample time to reflect, to commune with God, tell Him about your sufferings, about what is happening in your private world with regard to Chris, with regard to Philip. Did you feel anything different when you commune with God during the Holy Week?
Well, actually, even before Holy Week. And I think I finally found my peace before Christmas.
I see.
And before that, I was really in such pain. And I kept asking myself why and how did it happen and what did I do wrong and what could I have done differently so that this would not have happened. But at a certain point, talking with, in particular, a Carmelite nun who told me, you know, Cory, in this world, you have to accept that there are times when you are no longer in control, and the best thing to do is to offer this problem to the Lord. And until I did that, I really had so many sleepless nights, and I really kept asking myself, was there something really that I forgot to do, or was there something that I should not have done? You know, things like that.
When you were asking yourself these questions, ma'am, what answers were you giving yourselves that caused you all this pain and suffering? In other words, did you blame yourself, and why did you blame yourself?
Well, Winnie, it was a shock to me, okay, that I had done well, and I think I have done well insofar as my 3 older daughters are concerned. And certainly I've always prided myself in really giving so much of myself to my children. And before this happened, I guess I was really proud, saying that, look, I have 5 very good children who have always been there for Ninoy, for me, and who have never caused me problems, at least not big problems like this one. And I was also thinking that, well, could I have given too much attention to Chris?
In other words, did you spoil her?
Probably, yes, because she was the youngest. And you must remember, she was only a year and a half when Ninoy was imprisoned. And I guess not just me, but her brother, her sisters, my parents, and other relatives just felt so sorry for her. And we gave her all of this attention. But then, Winnie, in the beginning, it certainly paid off well. And I guess you both remember when she was only 7, she was campaigning for her father. And then all throughout the 23 years, you know, when she was a very dutiful daughter, I mean, I had no reason to complain. It was only when she met Philip that suddenly the whole world changed, and I no longer had that kind of influence that I used to have.
But did you see this? She met Philip under circumstances that may have gone beyond your control, because she entered a different world, the world of movies, where morals are not exactly the same. And at the same time, she earned a fabulous amount of money, and she became box office queen. Is it possible that her having experienced that kind of success, that kind of glamour, that kind of sitting on top of the world, gave her a sense of freedom that sort of spun her world out of control?
I was thinking about that also, that what if she had not entered showbiz? But then on the other hand, ever since, you know, I share this problem with so many, I have found out that people who have never even dreamed of going to showbiz have also had these problems. So it is not the business that you're in. And I suppose it's temptation. No matter how hard we try, we always have to be on guard. That sometimes something happens where you lose yourself and you are no longer able.
Can you get your exact position? Sandali lang.
Wait a second. The two of you, can you just take turns? I'm asking.
Like the audience of Fine Line to know her exact position, her exact, the way she stands on this problem, because she has never addressed a TV audience outside of us. So what is your exact position?
Well, when Chris told me that she was really in love with him, and I told her how impossible it was, and I told her, Chris, I have told you this time and time again, that I believe, and I thought you believed, that marriage is sacred, that marriage is permanent, and I just don't see that in this man that you are in love with. And it's not as if, you know, I'm just listening to plain gossip. I mean, it's there for all the world to see. And so I hope that you will still try and listen to me, and more importantly, to pray and ask for God's help. In fairness to Chris, she did try.
Demuna, what was her reaction when you gave her all this list of all the possible negatives in this kind of affair?
Well, both of us were crying, Winnie, and she kept saying, yes, I know, Mom, but I really just am so in love with him. And I said, well, Chris, I've always also told you that true love brings out the best in each other. You know, if you I've always thought that one of the signs to look for if you are both suited to each other is the best in you is brought out. And I was saying that, Chris, I have not seen him bring out the best in you. Mm-hmm. And she was saying, well, Mom, it's just something that I never thought would happen, but it has happened. And, you know, she just kept saying that she loved him. But I told her, Chris, okay, maybe you've made a mistake, but there is still time. And
Sure.
But I told her, whatever it is, know that I love you, and that we are all ready to help you. And her sisters also told her that.
On that note, Ms. Cory, excuse me, we'll pause for a brief break. You open the next segment.
Was she taking this in sorrow, or was she being defiant? What was going on there? You felt you were losing control. Do you think that it was part of her growing up, that she wanted to show, na, hey Mom, I'm old enough to take care of myself, please butt out?
I think she was confused. And in fact, you know how madaldal Chris is.
Oo nga eh.
But during that time, she was really not even talking, or barely, saying anything in response to what I was asking her.
There was tremendous inner conflict.
Yes, I'm sure. And again, in fairness to her, she was really being pulled in opposite directions. I think she still loves me. She still loves the family, but at the same time, she is so enamored of this.
Was there any attempt on the part of the family, on the part of the Aquinos or the Cojuangcos, to go to Philip Salvador? Because, my goodness, here is Chris being essentially a much younger girl, although, of course, she thought that she knew it all. No? Was there any attempt on the part of the family to go to Philip Salvador and say, lay off this girl?
I think some mutual friends had done their bit, but
walang kwan, ha?
Siguro sabi nung isa, look, this is a prize catch.
Just go.
Well, I don't know. Maybe those were not her words, but I imagine.
Yeah. One last question, Teddy, before you come in again.
Come in.
No, what I wanted to ask President Cory is, I have never seen you go so unstrung by this, than with this incident. I mean, I've seen you through coups. I saw you through the assassination of Ninoy, and you were talagang mother courage sort of thing. And here comes this thing over which really you have no control, and all of a sudden you fall apart. I
didn't fall apart.
I mean, in other words, yung talagang iyakan and
But you never saw me 24 hours a day, Winnie. So during the coup attempts, I mean, okay, you saw me when I was prepared to face the public, but I also had very disquieting moments, and certainly, again, in the coup attempts, I really had very little control, and but it also hit me bad. And then in the assassination, you didn't see me when I was in Boston, when I was crying my heart out. And at night, when I was alone, I'd never wanted my children to see me in so much pain and, crying, because I didn't want them to lose.
Sandali lang, ako naman.
One
Sandali lang. Darating po ang panahon na si Chris po is going to deliver a child who is going to be your grandchild. Kung dumating po yung panahon na yan, ano po ang inyong magiging feeling? Siyempre ho, as a grandmother, gusto niyong makita yung bata, pero as a Christian and taking the position that you have taken, ano ang gagawin niyo?
Alam mo, Teddy, bago umalis si Chris ng bahay, sinabi ko sa kanya, Chris, kung kailangan mo ako, kung kailangan mo mga kapatid mo, ang kailangan mo lang gawin ay tumawag ka at pupunta kami. Pero kung hindi ka tatawag, hindi kami pupunta dahil ayaw namin malagay sa alanganin na baka ayaw mo kaming naroroon. Kanyang maliwanag yun.
Kung pupunta po si Chris sa bahay nyo,
Ay.
dala niyo yung baby,
maliwanag yun. Sinabi ko,
sa kanya.
ikaw, Chris, at saka magiging anak mo, you will always be welcome.
I see.
But definitely, I will not welcome, you know, who.
Okay.
No, pero kung you know that she is in trouble, iintayin niyo pa bang tatawag siya? O baka, you know, kasi hindi ba kagaya, she is your child, most like Ninoy, na talagang napakatigas ng ulo. I mean, knowing that, would you use that as a sort of rationale to say, hey, this girl is in trouble, I better go to her because she will never come to me. She's like her father.
Dahil kilala ko si Chris, no? And when she was in trouble, in fact, when reports came to me that she was bleeding, I immediately asked Bolsey and Viel also to go to see her. I told her,
bakit hindi kayo?
Because kilalang kilala ako. If I had gone to the building where she lives,
nako,
at once, para bang in-announce ko na sa buong mundo na nandun ako. So, nakiusap ako kay Bolsey. Sabi ko, Bolsey, please do this for me. And in fact, Bolsey said, yes, ma'am. And I said, if she is really in that condition and she needs our help, tell her that we are ready to do things for her. So, when Bolsey went, and Viel accompanied her, sabi ni Bolsey, oh, Chris, pinapunta kami rito ng mami para makita ka kung may kailangan ka. And then, Chris cried and told her, ate, sabi niya, ate, oh, dali na ninyo ako sa ospital. So, that's when I called Alran Bengson. And I told Alran, can you please come over? I'd like to discuss something with you. So, immediately he came, and I told him, Alran, Chris is bleeding and we'd like to bring her to a hospital. Can you arrange for some hospital where she will be given excellent care, but at the same time, you know, not to make this so public. So, alam ni Chris yun. In fact, even without asking. Then after that, I told her when she was at home after the hospital examination, sabi ko, Chris, it seems as if you did not appreciate what your sisters and your brother did. You know, all of us were there. And still, you did not show your appreciation. And she didn't say anything. So I said, alam mo, Chris, from now on, unless you call us, we won't go anymore because you seem to make us feel na masyado kami nakialam. So, at any rate, she knows that all she has to do is to call, and we will be there for her.
Follow up sa sinabi ni at saka sa tinanong ni Winnie, na si Chris has so many traits of Ninoy. In fact, a lot of people are saying, including your mother-in-law, that si Chris is the
Ninoy
female Aquino, Ninoy na Ninoy. Is it possible that those traits of hers drove her to the kind of decision-making, to the kind of sense of adventure? She looks for the edge of the cliffs or she finds excitement.
Hindi naman, look. Look, huwag naman natin isali na si Ninoy dito, ano? And whatever Chris does, look, she's 24.
Yes.
She's intelligent.
Very.
She knows what's right, what's wrong. And at a certain point in one's life, you do not blame the parents anymore. And maybe if she were a teenager, then yes, maybe people could say, si Cory kasi pinabayaan, o si Ninoy hindi was not around to tell her what to do and what not to do. But 24 na eh. At saka, as I said, she's intelligent. And she knows very well what is right and what is wrong. So, let's leave Ninoy out of this.
Pero ang katotohanan ho naman, ayun ay napapansin ho namin, ibang-iba si Chris sa mga kapatid niya. Yung mga ibang kapatid niya talagang pambihirang, they don't like publicity, hindi sila mahilig ng glamour, hindi sila mahilig ng
The characteristics.
She is like Ninoy in the sense that she enjoys the public life.
Ano mo sasabihin?
Okay, yun na lang.
Yun lang.
Kasi,
sense of adventure.
kaibigan mo nun si Ninoy, patay na yung asawa ko eh. Huwag na nating isali dito sa kaguluhan na ito. But anyway, siguro, 24, doing very well in her career, and really feeling as if she can do it all. And you're correct in the sense that she is really daring. And unlike her sisters and her brother, who are more like me. And but all of us really, in spite of what is going on now, as I said, all Chris has to do is to call and we will be there. In fact, any of my children who will need anything at any point, all of us will rally.
Malala ko pa nung press secretary po ako, nung natrabaho po in your administration, ang dami po mga periodista, foreign newsmen, na humingi ng interview sa mga Aquino children. Ayaw magpa-interview, ayaw pagparitrato, just wanted to stay kasi hindi siya. Ayaw sila.
Mrs. President, nung...
Mas mabuti yun, di ba?
When there is a distinction between your reactions to your troubles when you were president and now that you are no longer president, is this reaction of yours something that you have said, I will allow the public to see because I am no longer president, or talagang have you changed and you have decided na I want to share this with the public because maybe it will help them? But you know, during the assassination, you were also very calm, cool, and collected in your public moments. And now you are no longer president, and you are no longer that calm or that cool or that collected. You are willing to share. What has created this change?
Well, first of all, there were so many misperceptions. You know, like me shutting the door on Chris and just, you know, so to speak, sending her away, and which was never true. And also because I wanted to share this with other mothers who may be suffering similar problems and who may want, I don't know, they might want to know how I'm coping with this. And so I believe that by sharing my experiences with them, by telling them how prayer has done much in order to bring me the peace that I once had, then I would perhaps not only be serving my own interests, but more importantly, sharing with everybody the importance of bringing God into the problem.
We'll pause for... Miss Aquino, magpalit po ulit tayo ng subject. Akyat po tayo ng ibang kalsada, ibang highway. Ito pong highway na ito very interesting because ito po ang highway na pupunta po sa May 8 of this year, the elections. At alam namin na meron po kayong in-endorse na 5. Pito na ngayon.
Pito nga.
Pito. Maaari po bang inyong
Sabihin
ko sino po yung 7 yun.
Mabuti tinanong mo na ako niyan, Teddy. Ano? Unang-una ay sinabi ko nga ay in-endorse ko si Frank Drilon. Alam naman niyo siya ay naging Secretary of Labor, tapos Secretary of Justice, and then Executive Secretary. Pangalawa, pinakiusap ko din si Nene Pimentel, nanggaling din sa ating cabinet yan, at siya ang responsible for the Local Autonomy Code.
Yes.
Pangatlo ay si Marcelo Fernan, dating Chief Justice, katulong din natin sa pagbabalik ng ating demokrasya. Pang-apat ay si Monching Mitra, kasama ni Ninoy na nakakulong sa Fort Bonifacio, at talaga ding malaki ang tinulong at tiniis nung panahon ng dictatorship. Tapos ang panglima ay si Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, a truly outstanding senator. And then pang-anim si June Magsaysay, dating congressman yan at isang magaling na businessman ngayon. At palagay ko ay malaki din ang maipaglilingkod sa ating mamamayan kung mahahalal sa Senado. And last but not the least is Serge Osmeña, who suffered imprisonment for 5 years. And even when he was already living in exile, was still working very hard in order to bring about the restoration of our democracy.
Okay, we know your list of 7. Sino po naman ang no-no list nyo? Siyempre, meron kayong no-no list. Ano?
Kanya nga, pag ako ay inaanyayahan na magtalumpati sa iba't ibang lalawigan, sinasabi ko, una-una huwag nating kalimutan kung ano nangyari nung panahon ng diktador.
Yan.
At alam nating lahat, hindi lamang si Ninoy, kung hindi libo-libo ang nakulong, ang iba napatay, at hindi na nakita man lamang ang kanilang mga remains. Kanya, isipin natin, sino ba ang ngayon na kandidato na marahil ay baka sumunod dun sa ginawa ng kanyang tatay, yan si Marcos Jr. Kanya, kung maaari po sana, tandaan natin yun. Tapos, alam natin lahat, dahil kayong dalawa ay nado sa cabinet nun, hirap na hirap tayo dun sa mga coup attempts. At ang ganda-ganda na sana ng palakad at ang ating ekonomiya ay talagang umaabante na ng husto, pagkatapos pinahirapan tayo ng mga coup attempts na yan. O sino ba ang dapat nating tandaan na talagang responsable para dyan sa coup attempts na yan, si Onasan. Kanya sana yung dalawang yun, Onasan at Marcos, na talagang pinahirapan, hindi lamang si CORY Aquino, kung hindi ang ating bayan, na hindi dapat naman mahalal yan.
Ayun lang dalawa lang ba? Ayan dalawa lang ba ang no-no ninyo, Mrs. President?
Alam mo, mahirap yung marami kasi sinasabi, yung dalawang yon basta tandaan lamang sana ng mga nanonood sa atin ay malaking bagay na yun.
Kasi ang nagtataka ho ako, kasi you are known to be very moral and very virtuous. Meron ho dyan mga kandidato na are not known for their morality or their virtue.
Sino?
Aba, di si... No, what I meant is, very frankly, Mrs. President, would you consider endorsing somebody like Baby Arenas?
Hindi, naghinto na ako di ba? Pito-pito ito aking inendorso. Unang-una, hindi na ako Pangulo ngayon.
Pero pitong lang pero lima ang merong 12.
Alam mo, Winnie, pag nakikiusap ka, hindi pwedeng 12. Sabihin naman, ito winning na ito, dami-daming pinakikiusap, ang kapal, So, tama na itong aking pito-pito.
Okay, dun sa lima. Dun sa lima na hindi nyo in-endorse, would you be happy if Baby Arenas, for example, were voted in?
I will be happy if all my 7 candidates win. At Winnie, wag mo nang sinasali pa kung sino-sino ito. Naririto ako ngayon, binigyan niyo ako ng pagkakataon. Yung pito-pito ko, ang talagang pinakikiusap ko.
Balik po tayo kay Bongbong Marcos. Manyari, mukhang naiengganyo niya ang mga kabataan, ang citizenry, na sinasabi niya na walang diktadura nangyari, hindi totoo yun. At sinasabi niya yung tatay niya raw hindi diktador. At sinasabi niya yung tatay niya ay pinakamagaling at pinakamahusay na presidente na nakuha ng Pilipinas, ng ating bayan. Bakit po maraming kumakagat? Bakit po maraming nalilinlang? Ano po nangyayari sa mga... Bakit po nangyayari?
Unang-una, Teddy, marami ba talaga nalilinlang?
Nasabi ko nila.
Dahil alam naman natin, magaling yung mga taong yan sa kanilang propaganda. At alam din natin, magaling sila na magpapapunta ng mga tao doon na siguro sisigaw-sigaw o talagang lalapit at pakikita na talagang gustong-gusto nila. Granted that they still have their followers. Pero ako'y naniniwala, the Filipino voter is an intelligent voter. And all we have to do is to remind them about what happened, and especially the young people. Dahil Winnie, baka napakabata nung araw nitong mga new voters, baka hindi nila nalalaman kung ano nangyari noong mga panahon ng diktador.
Pero may argument ho dyan kasi si Onasan Ang sinasabi niya, oo nga, pwede, sa mga krimen na ginawa ko, dapat ako bitayin. Pero ang dami-dami dyan, mga dapat bitayin rin, hindi sila binibitay at in fact are very very much in power. Paano yan? I mean, ano ang sagot nyo dyan?
Unang-una, maliwanag naman kung ano yung ginawa niya. At hindi na kailangan siguro na magdala pa ng katakot-takot na ebidensya dahil ang daming namatay, maraming nasugatan. Yung aking anak na si Noy ay nabaril. At siya mismo sinasabi sa kanyang interviews nung araw na talagang gusto niyang ibagsak ang pamahalaan. So, meron na tayong konstitusyon. At siya rin ay sa palagay ko, ewan ko kung talagang nag-pledge siya ng allegiance to the Constitution. Pero para bang kunyari, Winnie, meron kang ginawang hindi tama, tapos sasabihin, okay lang yan, dahil kasi si Teddy naman meron din ginawang hindi tama. Kanya, yan ang excuse niya ngayon. Di, ano naman mangyayari dito sa ating bayan na ito? Yung bang ibang yun ay kumakandidato rin. At ang maliwanag sa akin, at siguro naman sa lahat ng mga naninirahan dito sa ating bayan nung panahon ng mga coup attempts, lahat ng kasamaan at talagang yung dugo na umagos dahil sa kanyang ginawa.
Fearless forecast. Ano po ang forecast niya sa senatorial election? 7-5, 6-6, 5-7. At okay, kung hindi yung masakit pa, sino po ang inaakala niyong magiging top 3 or top 4?
Sa palagay ko si Gloria Macapagal will be among the top 3.
I see.
Oo. And another sure winner I have been told is Frank Drilon. Oo. Basta I go back to my 7. Inaasahan ko na yung 7 yon ay mananalo at bibigyan ng pagkakataon ng ating mga botante na maglingkod sa kanila sa pamamagitan ng paghalal sa kanila sa Senado.
Last week, Mrs. President, nag-launch kayo nung parang campaign against Marcos and Onasan nung sa AIM yata yon. How are you going to follow through with this? Andun kayo sa launching, hindi ba, ng mga kababaihan. How are you going to follow through on this?
Alam mo, ako ngayon nagpapasalamat na hindi ako talaga ang nag-initiate nito at yung mga kababaihan na nakaisip nito dahil sa palagay nila, yun na nga, yung mga batang botante ay hindi natatandaan at hindi nalalaman kung ano ang mga kasamaan na nangyari nung panahon ng diktador. Kanya nakita ko nga yung isang comic book na pinaliliwanag doon kung ano ang kasalanan nung diktador at kung ano rin ang kasalanan ng mga nag-co-attempt. Kanya, ito siguro ay sa pamamagitan nito, mapapaliwanag natin sa mga kabataan kung ano ang posibleng mangyari pag nahalal itong mga kandidatong hindi naniniwala sa demokrasya.
Mga ngampanya ho kayo for your pito-pito at tapos mga ngampanya rin kayo against these 2 particular candidates.
Dahil sa pagkampanya ko dito sa 7, sabi ko, ay nasubukan na natin sila at talagang tapat sila sa demokrasya. Ngayon, on the other side, ito naman yung mga taong nakita na rin natin na talagang ayaw sa demokrasya, nakikinabang sa demokrasya. Yun ang masakit doon, Winnie. Nakikinabang sa ating pagbabalik ng demokrasya, pero hindi tapat sa demokrasya.
Sa inyo inaakala, Mrs. Aquino, ito pong campaign at ang eleksyon na mangyayari sa 8 ng Mayo, itong taon nito, inaakala niyo bang magiging clean, orderly, honest, peaceful, o maaari hong makaroon ng mga incidents of violence? Nakakatakot po yung nangyari sa Mindanao, sa Zamboanga. At maaari po itong mga medyo nawawalaan po ng bait, na nagpapatay po ng tao. Baka i-carry po nila kalang violence, tinatawag na northward, hindi lang sa Mindanao. Hindi ko ba nakakatakot yan?
Hindi, kanya, nasa sa atin ang lahat yun. At minsan pa ay gusto kong pasalamatan ang iyong mabuting asawa si Chris Monsod dahil sa kanyang pamamalakad sa COMELEC ay talagang nagkaroon tayo ng isang malinis at maayos na halalan noong 1992. At sinasabi ko nga, nasa sa atin na rin yun eh. Huwag nating isipin na ang pamahalaan ang bahala na magkaroon tayo ng malinis na halalan. Dahil bawat isang botante ay kinakailangan una-una bumoto at pangalawa ay talaga naman na tumulong upang magkaroon tayo ng isang malinis at maayos na halalan.
On that note, we'll pause for another break. Winnie opens up in the next segment.
President Cory, as a result of the Zamboanga massacre, there are suggestions and strong recommendations na baka i-postpone yung election sa Mindanao. In other words, they will wait until the elections, the rest of the nation elects, and then they are going to concentrate on Mindanao. What do you think of that?
Medyo mahirap yun, ano? Dahil lalong-lalo na isipin natin kung sino yung number 11 at number 12. Siyempre yung meron pang chance na to get into the magic 12, masyadong mahirap na yung labanan kung tapos na yung halalan in most parts of the country. Kanya inaasahan ko na makakagawa ng paraan para sabay-sabay ng lahat boboto.
Oo. Meron dito hong note from the studio audience na meron tayong maliit na studio audience dito. Nakalagay dito si Mr. Onasan daw wala pa sa posisyon nanggugulo na. Paano kung nakaupo? Do you agree with that?
Oo, dahil kasi parang yun na nga sabi ko, gustong pagka it is to his benefit, then he agrees, with the democratic process. Pero pag hindi nasunod ang gusto, talagang lalabag na sa batas at gagawin na kung ano yung para sa kanyang sarili. Masyado yung sarili lamang ay iniintindi at hindi yung kapakanan ng mamamayan.
Ms. Aquino, let's go back to the subject of suffering, redemption, the passion that one goes through suffering. Yung suffering po ninyo, in the light of ano pong napagdaanan nyo at mga tao nakausap nyo, mga madre, mga pare, mga advisors, ano po ang tinatawag na mystique of suffering? Meron ho bang divine meaning ang suffering?
Siguro, no, tayong lahat ay Kristiyano at iisipin na lamang natin na Jesus Christ, na Diyos, ay kinailangan pang pumunta dito sa ating mundo upang ialay ang sarili niyang buhay, upang tayong lahat ay masalba niya at makapunta tayo sa ating pinaroroonan sa panghabang buhay, ay for eternity. So, I think what is very clear is that Jesus Christ showed us that we who profess to be Christians should live our lives like He did. And suffering, in fact, will be the link. In the same way that He suffered, even if He were not guilty of anything, and certainly He was God. If we are true Christians, then we must accept suffering as a part of our lives in and with Christ. Kanya, wag nating isipin if we are suffering, ay naku, siguro parusa sa akin ito, o iniisip mo, bakit ako nagdudusa ng ganito, anong kasalanan ko? Isipin na lang natin, walang kasalanan ang Panginoong Diyos. Ngunit iniisip niya para sa kabutihan ng ating mga, of all people, na kinailangan na magpunta siya rito at iyalay nga niya yung kanyang buhay para sa atin.
You know, in the midst of all His suffering, Jesus Christ asked His Father to forgive those who sinned against Him or who did Him wrong. Sa inyong palagay, ma'am, na-forgive niyo na ba si Chris?
Oo. Even, I don't think there was, if you mean by forgiveness, did I stop loving her? I never did. And I know that there will come a time when she will be back and that she will finally make peace not only with me, but more importantly with the Lord. Because what she has done is wrong, as you all know.
What about Philip? What do you feel about forgiving Philip? Do you think that's a little much beyond human capacity to do at this point?
Una, the way I look at forgiveness, it is necessary for the person who has done wrong to make amends and to ask for forgiveness and to be truly sorry for having done such a thing. But wala akong nakikita dyan. Siguro napaka-complicated nga itong kay Philip na ito dahil meron pa siyang pamilya. He has not wronged only me or for that matter.
And speaking
Chris.
of forgiveness and making amends, I remember one of the first acts nung kayong presidente, sinabi nga niyo yon, you know, in order to forgive there must be some what do you call it? Some reparation. Ngayon yung hindi ba yung PCGG nagkakaroon sila ng negotiations with the Marcoses na 75%, sige na, everything will be forgiven, basta 75% of all that wealth goes to the government, 25% goes to the Marcoses, they can keep it.
Pero nung panahon ko, hindi ganon. Dahil lang, sinasabi ko, yung those who have committed lesser wrongs, okay, or who were not directly involved, or who were, as I said, the little guys, then if they return, and then they can be forgiven. But for those who really rob the country blind, we cannot allow them to just...
Going back to suffering, Ms. Aquino, you are suffering, I suppose...
Actually, can we stop that?
Pero gusto ko lang sabihin,
I have suffered.
The suffering makes you a better person.
I think so. It depends. I mean, like Ninoy used to tell me, ang daming nakulong noong panahon ng martial law. And I can truthfully say that after Ninoy's incarceration, he emerged a much better man, a much better Christian. But it all depends on how you accept suffering. You have to accept suffering, as I said, as a part of your life in and with Christ. But if you are going to complain, if you are going to not accept suffering, and you are saying, why am I being singled out for suffering, then you will emerge a bitter person instead of a better person.
Naalala ko pa yung nasabi nyo during your speech before the Solo Parents Association last February. Minention niyo po si Saint Francis of
Assisi. Yes.
At kayo po ay nagulat na malaman na si Saint Francis of Assisi na ang
Was
dami-dami
asking.
namang suffering was even asking
For more.
Ano po ang mystic nun? Bakit po nakaganyan?
Because I think it is the thinking that as you suffer, you become that much closer to the Lord.
I see.
Because each suffering is a purification, actually.
Oo nga no.
And so you advance, I guess, in the purifying process. But as I said, ako, Dear Jesus, hindi ako magrereklamo, pero tama na naman, ano? Medyo, relax muna tayo.
Sabi nga nila si Mother Teresa was making kwento na, ayun nga, kino-comfort niya yung isang nagsasuffer. Sabi niya, you know, the more you suffer, that's a sign that God loves you. Sabi ho nung babae, will you please tell Jesus not to love me so much?
Ganun nga.
But you know, when we first started here, sinabi niyo, when we were talking to you about suffering and redemption, sabi niyo sa akin oy, pwede ba? Huwag hindi naman ako palaging Mater Dolorosa. There have been joys.
Yes, many
and
joys.
Easter is a season of joy. Please tell me, what are the joys that you have gotten, say, even from Chris or
Yes,
whatever?
well,
yes, I'd like to see that side of it.
The joys of being a wife and mother, and now a grandmother, and then the other joys, being named Woman of the Year by Time Magazine. My goodness. At talagang super happy ako noon dahil sa buong buhay ko, hindi ko alam na maisusulat ako sa Time Magazine. Biruin mo naman yung nangyari yun. Then, of course, the joy and the fulfillment of having been, or at least at the forefront of the restoration of our democracy. Na nung araw pa sabi si Ninoy, naku, paano natin maibabalik ang demokrasya? I'm afraid that our country might have to go into a civil war. And it was Ninoy who was wanting to be president. I never wanted to be president. And Ninoy saying also, naku, after 6 months, whoever succeeds Marcos will be booted out. After 6 months, di tuwan-tuwa naman ako, Winnie, at Pangulo pa ako. At lalong-lalo na, nakatapos ako ng aking pagiging Pangulo, and I was able to transfer power in a very orderly manner.
Can we say that your joys and your sufferings are more intense, more felt by you? Kunyari po, naging presidente kayo for 6 years. Meron bang diferensya? Kung hindi ko kayo nag-presidente at natanggap niyo itong suffering nito, meron bang diferensya between having been and not having been?
Well, certainly having been president makes a lot of difference. And even now, yun na nga, that's another of my joys. I still get perks when I am abroad. Na hanggang ngayon, hindi ako marunong na fila-fila dyan sa mga immigration or customs of other nations. And when I am abroad, I even get motorcycle escorts.
Wow.
So, I'm still human and I certainly enjoy all of these perks. So, there have been more joys than sufferings in my life. It's just that siguro masyadong matindi rin itong aking trials na, and also because having been in the public eye, everybody knows. Yun na nga iniisip ko, maraming katulad ko na ina na naranasan itong aking pagdudusang ito. Kanya lamang, kung hindi sila masyadong kilala, private na lamang yung kanilang suffering. Itong akin, talagang halos lahat. At gulat na gulat ako hanggang daw sa Espanya at saka sa England, yung kanilang parang equivalent of the People magazine. Yung isang kaibigan ko sabi, nakita daw yung retrato ko daw. Sabi, ano naman ang ginagawa ng retrato ni Cory nung pala tungkol kay Chris?
We'll pause for another break. Stay with us. Miss Aquino, nung sinabi nyo na meron kayong ina-endorse na 7 senatorial candidates at meron kayong no-no list, parang for the first time, you took an active role in the political life of this country. Magmula po nung nag-retire kayo you got down from the presidency in 1992. Ang inakala po ng napakaraming tao na between now and 1998, maraming pong mga tinatawag na events na kukulo, at magiging mga mushroom cloud at meron mga balak ang mga oposisyon, mga nataong in power to change the political system of this country. Yun nangyari po sa Mindanao, maaari pong gumulo ang panahon. Maaari ho bang magkakaroon ng circumstance, event that may compel you, whether you like it or not, to take an active role in Philippine politics, and on what issue?
Well, there has been talk, of course, about the switch to a parliamentary system, and I have already declared that I will campaign against a parliamentary form of government. First, for the reason that Filipinos want to vote directly for their president. And I don't think we should give up on that. And as I have told many, basta pag nag-umpisa yan, ay talagang kakampanya ko, laban dyan.
One more follow-up, then it's yours. No? Isa pang follow-up. Marami po akong naririnig ng mga tao. At dyan sa mga tao po niyan, meron pong mga tutol po sa inyo ng araw. Eh, ito pong mga taon to, iniisip nila na kung wala pong leader na talagang napapagkatiwalaan, malakas, at saka pinatawag na moral authority, ang sinasabi po nila, baka maaari raw kayo makonvince na bumuli uli to take a second turn at the presidency.
Alam mo, thank you very much for whoever those friends are. But ang paniwala ko ay talagang ako ay kinailangan lamang nung transition from a dictatorship to a democracy. At ang talagang pinag-aabalahan ko ng panahon ngayon ay makapagtayo ng tinatawag kong Aquino Center, na magkakaroon tayo ng Institute for People Power and Development, na tutulungan natin yung mga kooperatiba at iba pang mga NGOs in the matter of preparing their project studies. At ang ginagawa nga ng Aquino Foundation ay dinodocument namin yung mga successful programs and projects para yung mga ibang kooperatiba na gustong tularan yung nagawa nila ay mas madadalian dahil meron na kami documentation. Pero gusto ko talaga magkaroon ng Aquino Center. We will have a museum and library at doon ko ilalagay ang memorabilia, both of Ninoy and myself, at magpapalabas din kami ng mga dokumentaryo tungkol din sa kay Ninoy at sa akin sarili.
May balik nga ho natin sa joy and suffering. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Ma'am, you were talking about the joys attached to the presidency. And did you ever think that perhaps, supposing, did it occur to you or did it cross your mind that if you had not been president, maybe this would not have happened to Chris? Na-cross ba sa mind nyo yun?
Hindi. Ang naisip ko lamang talaga yung kung sakaling hindi siya nag-showbiz. Yun ang nalagay sa isip ko. Dahil yung aking pagiging Pangulo, even before I became President, kilalang-kilala na yan si Chris. In fact, during the 1978 Laban campaign, mas maraming nakilala kay Chris kaysa sa akin dahil siya ang nagbibigay ng mga talumpati noon.
Ngayon, you know, just yung speculative question. If you had to do it all over again and you were asked to choose between getting the presidency and keeping Chris out of the clutches of Philip Salvador, what would you choose?
But then, Winnie, I told you that my being president had nothing to do with the Chris Philip affair. So there is no choice there. And also, the reason why I ran for the presidency was because it was thought then that I alone could unite the opposition, and it was necessary to only have one candidate against the dictator.
Now, a lot of mothers, all of us mothers have always had this experience with children. At some point in time, we despair because they had done something that we did not want to do. Meron ba kayong message na for mothers as to how to cope with this kind of thing, which causes a lot of grief and heartbreak as far as mothers and of course fathers are concerned?
Well, my answer to that would be prayer, and it has been prayer that has seen me through all of my difficult trials, and it is prayer that keeps me going also. And I truly believe that since God loves Chris even more than I do, He will take care. And that at this point in my life, I've done everything possible. I've certainly prayed a lot. So I leave the rest to the Lord.
Ms. Aquino, let's talk about the church. And when I talk church, I mean the Roman Catholic Church because 85% of Filipinos are Roman Catholics. Ano pong nakikita nyo na role po ng simbahan tungkol po sa pag-uunlad ng ating bayan? Yan aking napupuna po at lahat naman, marami, na ang simbahan po, especially Jaime Cardinal Sin, has been taking a much more, shall we say, eloquent, more assertive, more firm position on quite a number of political matters. Yan po ba ay mabuti o hindi mabuti para sa bayan?
Sa palagay ko, dahil lalong-lalo na sa ibang mga bayan, yung mga maliliit na bayan sa ating mga lalawigan, ang nilalapitan nila ang ating mga pare at tinatanong nila na ipaliwanag sa kanila ang mga political issues. Kanya, inaasahan ko na mga pare sa ating simbahan ay nagbabasa at talaga namang gumagawa ng paraan upang malaman nila talaga kung ano itong mga issues na ito upang mapaliwanag naman nila sa kanila.
Bakit may influensya ang simbahan po?
Well, because
sa electorate sa May 8, merong konti.
I suppose for people who turn to them and ask them to explain certain things. But it is not for them, you know, to tell them to vote for one candidate or the other. But I think in the matter of explaining, you know, about the qualifications of certain candidates, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but give the final decision to the voter.
Sa halalan na ito, Mrs. President, saan probinsya kayo pupunta para mangampanya? Meron ba kayong schedule, mga favorite local government officials?
Unang-una yun sa Tarlac, siyempre, dahil yun ang aking lalawigan. Pero sa Pampanga, dahil doon ay kumakampanya ako para kay Governor Brengiao.
Excuse me.
At kumakampanya din ako sa Bulacan para kay Governor Pagdanganan at saka kay Congressman Boje Cabochan.
Namimiligro ba sila?
Hindi naman. Pero pinakiusapan ako at natatandaan ko pa rin naman ito ang mga katulong ko sa ating pagbabalik ng demokrasya at malaki ang tulong na nagawa nila para sa kanilang lalawigan. Katulad ng Pampanga, in spite of the lahar, in spite of the locust infestation, the economy is still doing well in Pampanga. So I think we should give credit to Governor Giao, and I hope the voters of Pampanga will remember this and will re-elect him.
Dun sa Tarlac ho, hindi ba na you are under criticism because Tingting is governor and Piping is congressman and, you know, in other words, parang Tarlac has become a Cojuangco fiefdom. How would you defend yourself against such criticisms?
Alam mo, nasa mamamayan yan eh. Kung ayaw nila talaga sa mga Cojuangco, hindi nila iboboto. At meron naman mga other options. Ano? Hindi naman yung katulad ng panahon ng diktador na wala kang other options.
Hindi ba si Aping Yap na who used to be very, very close to you, all of a sudden is in Pampanga, in Tarlac has become so bitter that para daw, ano yun, you did not appreciate him.
Alam mo, nagpunta sa akin si Aping. At sinabi nga niya sa akin na, alam mo, Cory, wala naman akong laban sa iyo at hindi ko rin kinakalaban si Piping. Tapos, sinabi ko, mabuti pa dyan mag-usapan kayong dalawa ni Piping. At sinabi ni Piping sa kanya, Aping, kung totoo, hindi mo kami kinakalaban, maaari mo bang sabihin publicly na sinusuportahan mo ako at saka si Tingting. Tapos sinabi niya, oo, gagawin ko yan, pero hindi naman niya ginawa yun.
But he is not running.
I'm sorry again. It's curtain time.
Kakasarapan na naman tayo.
Compelled to come to a close. So Winnie and myself would appreciate it, and also the audience of Firing Line, if you can give a parting message of 1 minute.
Well, let me thank you again, Teddy and Winnie, for inviting me to the show. And as I said earlier, I hope that all of us had a happy Easter and all of us remembered to thank the Lord for all the blessings that have been given to us personally and also to our country. And I hope that all of us will continue to pray and to help each other. We have to pray for each other and we have to help each other.
Thank you very much, Ms. Aquino. This is Teddy Benigno of Firing Line. Keep fighting.
And this is Winnie Monsod of the University of the Philippines, and I'm just going to say Happy Easter to all of you.
Happy Easter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.